Hi, everyone. Welcome to Writing Stories with L.M. Spilsbury and Kimberly D. Tate. I'm L.M., and that stands for Louise Marie.
And I'm Kim.
All right, today we thought we would talk about the writing process. I was thinking the other day about what it's like to prepare a turkey dinner for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and you spend hours cooking the turkey, making the dressing, mashing the potatoes, cooking the vegetables, making the gravy, and you set everything out on a plate and you put it in front of people, and everybody loves it, and they finish the meal in 20 minutes. And that's the end of it, and nobody saw the hours of work that went into it, and that's a bit what it's like writing a book, isn't it, Kim? That's right. So anyways, we thought we would talk about the writing process today. And Kim has an interesting process which she calls connect the dots. So why don't you tell us about that?
Well, it's a lot like the turkey dinners. Like sometimes you spend years on these books, and then somebody reads it in 2 or 3 days or a week or whatever, and then poof. It's done, and nobody realizes the amount of work and the blood and the sweat and the tears and the frustration that goes into writing these stories. But that's why we love it. It's a labor of love, and my writing process is kind of an interesting one. I know yours kind of starts with the character, and mine does too. Like, I generally have a character in mind, and then when I sit down to write a story, I can see certain scenes in my mind. It's kind of like a movie that plays in my head. And I have a whole bunch of these little vignettes or little scenes in my head. And I want to get them into the story. So my process now is what I call connecting the dots. And, that's kind of like, when you were a kid and, sometimes your parents would take you out for a nice meal, and in order to keep you quiet, the waitress or the waiter would bring you this little puzzle that you could trace the dots, and a picture would emerge. So that's kind of how I like to think of my writing process, is this connecting the dots. And as you connect the dots, slowly a picture emerges, an overall picture emerges. And so I guess it would be kind of like if you had sticky notes and you would write scenes, and you had a big board. I know some people like to work this way, and they stick their sticky notes up with certain scenes, and then they can rearrange them. But I seem to be able to do this in my head.
Can I ask a question? I have a question,
Sure.
though. When you do this, do you have some idea of what the story's about, or do you just have these disjointed scenes that you then have to create a story from?
Oh,
or
no.
do you at least have a kernel of an idea of what the story's about?
Generally, I have an idea of how to begin the story. I have like an inciting incident, and I have kind of like an ending in mind. But the rest can be kind of a vague situation, or in the case of A History of Lightning, I had the whole book completely in my mind. I have to kind of interject a funny story right here because, as I was growing up, and I have a twin sister, and, we both think alike. And in English, I would get straight A's, and anything that used creativity and imagination, I was fluent in that. But math and times tables, and my mother used to jokingly say, why can you remember every single jingle and every single theme song to every TV show that was ever made, but you can't do 4 plus 4? Like, what is it? Your brain just isn't wired. My brain just isn't wired to do logical thinking. So, that's this connecting the dots, I think, is my brain's way of trying to keep an 80,000 word story straight, or in the case of Cirque de Tarot, it's 180,000 words. And for my brain to, control all these words, then I have to put it into some kind of a system that my brain can control. So the connect the
Well,
dots seems to work pretty well for me.
yeah, it's interesting to hear about it because I always start with a character. The big impediment that I always run into in creating a story is to come up with a problem. Like, what
Yeah.
is the problem that this person has to overcome, and who is the bad guy? And once I figured those out, I can pretty much let the story unfold. It's very much like Jane Ann McLaughlin's process of downriver writing, where once you know the characters intimately and the situation intimately, everything unfolds very organically. But coming up with that original problem,
Yeah.
and it has to be, for a novel, it has to be fairly in depth and fairly significant, and there has to be a lot at stake for it
Yeah.
to be interesting. And that's where I always run into my problems, is because I have a great character. I usually have a setting that I think will be really good, but in order to come up with a story, I need the problem and an antagonist, and I end up scratching my head for a long time to come up with that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you kind of just let that unfold in your little movie clips.
Yes. Yeah. Organically.
That's just so interesting. I was reading a book that described right brain thinking versus left brain thinking, and Kim, you are definitely a right brain thinker, and I am
yes.
totally a left brain thinker.
That's why when you throw a math problem at me, I get like a deer in the headlights look, because my brain just empties. And I just freeze, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
It's so strange because I can tell you right away, 4 plus
I
4, it equals 6. Don't you know that? No, I'm just kidding.
I know. I
But
know.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's very interesting. I think that I guess
Well,
every writer probably has their own
Yeah,
approach, and
that's what I
even
was
every
saying.
story is a little bit different as well.
Definitely, yeah.
But it seems like the sorts of things that cause you problems are not the kinds of things that cause me problems. I suppose what I need to do is give you all my ideas and get you to tell me what the story is, and then I'll write it.
Oh God, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we need to figure out a way to sort of mesh our brains into one, to mash them together, and then I think we could come up with the perfect novel of all time, the greatest
Yeah.
novel of all time.
That's right. We could be Kimberly D. Spilsbury or L.M. Tate.
Yeah.
Anyways. Well, we both kind of thought that it might be interesting for people out there who wonder about the inception of stories to hear from a couple of us where they come from. And sometimes it's like they just come out of thin air and it's really easy, and other times you have to hack them out of granite and it's not that easy at all.
Yeah.
And our jobs as writers is to make you want to read it just like you'd eat your turkey dinner and get to the end and say, "Oh, that was good.
That was
Why was
delicious.
there a problem?" So, anyways, I guess that's good for today. So we'll thank everybody for tuning in to our little corner of the world, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye for now.
Bye now.